Hello, hello. This is Lee Fuller, and you are listening to the Bible in Real Life podcast. So I'm glad you tuned in this week, and you are going to be glad you tuned in this week because today we are talking about how to follow God in real life. So sometime I'll hear these stories about a person say, "Hey, the Lord showed me to do this or told me to do that." And let me tell you, I've read the Bible. As we're going through scriptures, we see Abraham, we see how different ones God will say, "Hey, get up and go." Ananias, "Hey, get up, go talk to Paul." So you see in the Old Testament and the New Testament, you see those that heard God's word and they acted and they moved according to what God told them to do. Well, today I'll be introducing a brother that has a similar experience and a vivid testimony. I'm going to let him introduce it. But if you've been wondering, how can I, what are some of the, let me see, what does it look like in real life to respond to God's call? And do people still do this? Does this still happen? Well, today we are going to you're going to follow in this journey with me. So today I'm going to bring on my good buddy. His name is David Davis. Hello, my friend.
Good afternoon, Lee. Welcome.
All right. My man. So give you a little bit about David. So we have served in ministry together here in the Tampa Bay area. Now, my man, he's one of those. What do I call him? He's one of those. When Jesus was handing out talents, some people got one, right? I could talk a little bit, so I got my one. I'm just gonna talk, 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 talk. But this man here, he worked in the teen ministry. He was in the choir. He also has that gift of communication. So him and his 5, 10 talents, his 2, 3, 5 talents. That's who David was. David also, I remember we were talking one time and he said, "You know what? The Lord told me to open this outreach." So he invited me to it. And before I know it, boom, he was up and had established this outreach ministry where we may get into some of that in the session today, in the interview today. But as long as I've known this person, this is one that when he hears what God shares and puts on his heart, he follows God in real life. Today we're going to see how that's working out and hopefully encourage the rest of us to do what God tells you to do. So, David, glad to have you here, my brother.
Lee, I'm glad to be here, man. Thank you for that incredible introduction, man. Yeah, it's been a journey, and here we are.
There is a verse in Psalms 63:8. And I tell people whenever I quote a verse, I quote King James because that's what you memorize. That's the authorized version,
James.
right? Psalm 63:8. My soul followeth hard after thee. The right hand upholds me. And you are the person that I think of somebody following hard. It ain't always easy. He will follow hard
Yeah.
after God. So I just want to, open it up a little bit. Um, so tell me, I'm originally from Fort Myers. Are you originally from the Tampa Bay area?
Absolutely, man. Born and raised. All my family is there. Deep, deep roots. Come on, home of those Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Can we just give a quick? All right, yeah. Born,
Right.
born and raised, man, from the soil.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Cool. Well, let me ask you. So as I was thinking about, following hard after God, there's a movie that I liked called Pursuit of Happiness.
Yeah.
Right. So that's one of my, Will Smith's one of
Will
those dudes.
Smith.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's one of my favorite movies. What would be one of your favorite movies? Like, hey, you know what? I've probably seen it at least 10 times.
Man, honestly, it's an interesting movie, man. I don't think it's like super popular, but it's a movie that I go to very regularly whenever like my faith tank is low or whenever I'm kind of like, all right, this is a little bit more than I can take. I'll go to this movie and just allow it to reset my imagination and reset like my tenacity even. But it's what is it? The Secret Life of Walter Mitty or something like that. It's starring Ben Stiller. And so basically it's
Huh.
this guy who he has these he has this vivid imagination, and he goes off into these places where like he gets visions and it's super climactic, and then he comes back only to find out that he's living like a regular life. And then toward spoiler alert, uh towards the middle of the movie, something happens where he's like, you know what, I'm gonna actually go on this adventure that my mind always goes into these adventures. I'm gonna actually go on an adventure. And so he leaves his job, he finds himself like in the middle of I think like Greenland or Iceland somewhere, like literally out there because he's trying to get this picture to a photographer because he worked for Time Magazine. And so like all of these crazy, images and stuff, he's starting to have less and less of these visions because he's actually living it out now. And so I know it's a strange movie, and people are probably like, well, David,
Wow.
how does that work? And what it does, like I said, it puts me back in a space of whenever you've stopped moving, or whenever you slow down in your faith, even like dream again, imagine again, believe again.
Wow, man. I didn't know that's where it was going to go. That's a good question. I'm going to have to, I'm going to have to start interviewing people and be like, hey, what's your movie revelation?
Look, I mean, listen, man, I'm telling you, find God in everything.
Right. Absolutely. I don't know how we got stuck on the movie already, but a lot of, so I remember one year I saw this movie, Yes Man or Yes, with Jim Carrey, something like that.
Yeah.
But in the movie, like he started saying, yes, hey, yes, I'll go. Yes, I'll do it. And I remember I did that for a year. Like, I don't know if this is a biblical point, but I did that for a year. And that year I ended up, canoeing, just stuff. I went camping, right? They're like, hey, you want to go camping? I was like, yes. I ended up camping. I said, camping ain't too bad. There was a boat, and you just kind of hang out behind the boat, like on a tubing. It was like, hey, you want to go tubing? Like on the little tube, the boat just kind of dragged you across the lake. And I was like, yes, but it turned out being so much fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, sometimes I think so many times no gets in the way, right? And I think your life really opens up, sometimes when you say yes. And I believe that you are that person that, when the Lord lays something on your heart, you'll say yes. And that has been has created an interesting story in your life, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So first, share with me the story, kind of for the outreach, because I think sometimes one yes can lead to another yes, right?
Yeah.
So first, tell me that outreach story, following God in the outreach.
Sure, man. I actually want to come in on what you just said, though. You said one yes will normally lead to another yes. A yes is a domino effect, the same as a no, right? So a no can prevent dominoes from actually falling over, but a yes will lead to the next one, the next one, the next one, the next one. So what happened was I was initially back in 2018, the Lord told me to visit Tulsa, Oklahoma, and go to this church. So I was like, all right, cool, bet, whatever. And he told me while I was there to apply for this internship. I'm like, man, unpaid internship. I don't trust you. Like, I don't trust you that much. But if you're telling me to do it, I'll do it. Because at least sometimes you have to say yes, even though the trust may not be there, or even if you know what I mean. You still have to know that yes is going to be honored later on. And so I did what I knew. I applied for it, and when I didn't get it, I was like, all right, cool, bet. I know you told me to do it, so I'm not tripping, but why I didn't get it. And so what he said was, I needed to test your yes. I needed to test your trust in me, because now I want you to go start and do this outreach. Now I want you to go in the middle of downtown Tampa, and I want you to go in this building, and I'm going to show you what to do. I'm going to show you what to say. And so literally, man, it started out as Bible study with whoever would show up, right? I think the room was like $50 to rent out. And I was like, all right, it comes with snacks. Okay, cool.
Right.
And so either the first or the second time I did it, what I was learning, man, is God was showing me the Bible. Like you talk about that King James, he was showing me the King James Bible, like in a new way that I had never seen before in my own life. And also he was really strengthening my word knowledge. He was strengthening my trust in him. He was strengthening my yes even. So I think it was like during the second Bible study, I had a bunch of snacks left over. And so, funny enough, there were some kids there who were being a little disruptive in the back. And I thought to teach them a lesson, we're going to go hand these snacks to the people in the, homeless people and people around. And what ended up happening, man, you come with bread and you end up with water. Listen, we ended up praying for people like as we were handing out snacks. We ended up like my cousin and I actually we were guiding people, on this walk with Christ, getting people to give their life to Jesus. And so it started out as an act of obedience. Okay, God wants me to lead Bible studies into an actual outreach. Okay, bet, boom, we're gonna hand out snacks at the end of this thing, and we're gonna see, who we can bring into the kingdom. We're gonna see how we can enlarge the kingdom. And so that's actually how it started. So it was one yes that started almost a
That's
year
good.
prior to
That's
apply
good.
for an internship that actually got me to doing the outreach.
Oh wow. Wow. Man, I love seeing these I love seeing these threads through
Hmm.
things. So I just did episode might have been episode 3 or 4 where I talked about how God can show you, right?
Right.
Hey Lord, show us. And sometimes it's his sovereignty where you just
Mhm.
kind of see things opening and not sure how one thing will lead to another thing, right?
Yeah.
So that's really, you know what? I wish and no lie. The other day I was cleaning up my office and I found Jonah, like one of your handouts
You got that?
from
Come on,
that
Lee.
man. I say, you know what? And not too long ago, you text me,
Yeah.
hey, what's going on? Just checking on. And I was like, I just saw the thing. So it's amazing how, I realized that a believer's life is intentional. Like
Absolutely.
there's certain things that God is like, hey, you know what? I'm just showing you that I'm doing my thing. So
Yeah. Lee.
so let's continue the story. So
Yeah.
you open the outreach, so you're learning, you're picking up things
Hmm.
about how to get into your word. You're
Hmm.
seeing how God is directing your steps. You know what? Let me park here for a second.
Okay.
So you say the Lord was kind of showing you,
Yeah.
right? So are you one of those people where you hear this audible voice, that you know, David, or how do you sense God talking to you?
It's interesting, Lee. I didn't realize this until like maybe like 2016 or 17. I was actually in an argument and with a friend of mine, and so I had all the facts that I needed to prove that I was right, and I was getting ready to go, and I heard an audible voice tell me to shut up, and I
Mm.
said, "Nah," and I went to talk, and I couldn't open my mouth. Mouth wouldn't open up. And
What?
so I kid you not. But then, like the very next day, that person came back and was like, "Yeah, I want to apologize. I was talking with somebody and they said this, and that." It was the same points, but the Lord knew that they needed to hear it from someone else. They wouldn't have been able to receive it from me. And so it was
Mm.
at that time that I actually realized that I actually do hear God. Like I've heard that voice for many many years, but I always thought it was me. Because when you're not in relationship with God, you can't tell the difference, right? For
Say
instance,
that.
you have two girls, right? So if you were to call their name from across the park, they would say, "Oh,
Mhm.
daddy's called," right?
Right.
And they would only know that because they're in relationship with you. But when you're
Right.
not, if they were never in relationship, if they never knew you, if you were an abandoned father,
Mm.
they
Right.
wouldn't know your
Right.
voice. They wouldn't know you. They'd be like, "Ooh, I've heard something. I don't know. That must have been me. That must have been my thought." So I
Right.
actually like started to listen more for that voice. But then, man, as I grew in just relationship with God, I started to see him in other things. That's why I said like find God in all things. I started
Okay.
to notice like, man, these dreams that I'm having, okay, I saw this is actually happening in real life. So I started looking and, analyzing my dreams. I started to even look at like different numbers, man. The Lord would like show me different numbers and I would go and do research and biblical research and see, okay, what is this? What is that? Like, not like a charlatan, right? But like real, actual, concrete theological history,
Okay.
behind the things that God was showing me. Another way that God speaks to me, so it's like those visions, right? Those visions that I was talking about in the movie. I think that's probably why I relate to that movie so well. Is because
Maybe.
like I'll
Yeah.
get those, like
Right.
I'll literally have those. It's like, huh, okay, I'm
You
not
know,
crazy.
I have a couple friends that's kind of their communication. One of their communication
Yeah.
elements is visions and dreams and that type of stuff. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm. What I've learned most, man, is if you will avail yourself, like God is always talking. He's always
Mm.
talking. And I mean, I imagine like somebody who created the entire everything, he probably has a lot to say, right? Always
Facts.
talking. We
Facts.
just have to find a way to listen. We have to
Okay.
find a way to understand what we're listening to, and then we
Okay.
have to find a way to act on what it is that he's shown us, what it is that he's told us, or even feeling sometimes. I used to think I had really good instincts, and no, that's not what it is at all. It's Holy Spirit in me has really great foresight, and so will give me
Mm.
different. Hey, don't go over there. Hey, leave this store. Hey, go talk to that person. Hey, go pray for this person. Go pass out these snacks and talk to those people. And then when they ask you for prayer, go pray for them. Like it's so
Right.
many different levels of communication, man. Like God is not a beeper. It's not one mode. Like okay, I'm gonna beep you and then pick up a phone. God is a
Okay.
text message. He's an email. He's an
Right.
airdrop.
Right.
He's a telegram. Like he's all of them.
It's so funny. We were going through the book of Acts in one of our Bible studies, and you start to see like there. Yeah, wait a minute. He spoke through the prophets and the in this verse, and this time it was a dream, and this verse somebody came and they did a sign.
Mhm.
So it's so true. But I think we have to be open, and I like that phrase. I think you said see God in all things, right?
Mhm.
So it's kind of like being open to what God is saying.
Absolutely.
It doesn't necessarily have to come through one way. Because I was like, hey, in the episode 3 or 4, how to hear from God. That's why I think this podcast is so good. I talked about the sovereignty of God, which is
Mhm.
the S. The Holy Spirit confirming in us.
Mhm.
And then O, sometimes others. You hear others. Kind of show, and then
Right?
W, the Word of God. So we
Yeah.
ask God to show us the way. SHOW,
Oh, sure.
and
Yeah.
I've been trying to teach that.
Did that.
I try to teach a little bit.
I see what you did.
Um, um, but yeah, so it's confirmation. As I'm hearing you tell your story, I'm hearing that okay, wow, this is real life, and that's why I think this is such a good interview.
Yeah.
So you had your first visit to Tulsa,
Right.
and then you came back and you went through this learning process. You're growing, you're maturing.
Mhm.
Um, but then I think did you go a second time? I think you went a second time.
So I did, man. I came a second time for a conference, and it was so crazy when I got off the plane. So even actually leading up to it, right? So let's break gaps between trips, right?
Okay.
So I think
Okay.
the first time I went, I was just kind of learning. I was just learning how to partner with God, with what He
Mm,
would say. Because when you say yes, you're agreeing to a partnership. Like when you ask, "Hey, Dave, would you want this interview?" That's me. My yes is, "Yeah, I'll partner with you on that." Like so, when you say yes
mm.
to God, it's you agreeing to be a partner in something that He wants to do here on the earth. So when He first sent me the first time, I was learning to be a partner. When He
Okay.
sent me the second time, I was learning to be a good partner. And so I remember, right. And so listen, so many times in between, like in
Okay.
between those two, God was giving different opportunities to learn good partnership. He was giving different opportunities to learn, like act fast when I tell you to do something. Like I don't want you to miss it. Like there's something I
Okay.
want to do through you, but there's also something I want to do for you as well. Right. And
Mm,
so that second visit, I remember so vividly, man, just like leading up to it, the week leading up to it, I was like, man, this is gonna be crazy. Something big is gonna happen. Like this is gonna change my life, right? And so we park right there and realize expectation is present, right? So like
okay.
even when God told Abram to go to the land I'm gonna show you, there's an expectation in there. Like, all right, I don't know what I'm gonna see, but I know He's gonna do something. He wouldn't tell me to do it if it was for nothing, right?
Right.
So
Right.
now I've got expectation in my pocket. And so as I go on that second trip, I remember getting off the plane and hearing the Lord say, uh, make friends, build community. You're not moving here yet. And
Mm,
so if
mm.
I heard nothing else, I heard yet. Yet
Uh-oh.
is not a period. Yet is a comma. Yet
Okay.
is a hey, we're gonna blank out this little space and we're gonna pick up somewhere else. Right.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I knew then I was like, all right, he okay. You said yeah. I heard what I heard. I know what you said. You
Right.
said yeah, but okay. And so that trip ended up being incredible, man. I built some great community, like people that I still talk to now, and we're talking 3, 4 years later. And
Mm.
so, I mean, good community and relationships. And so that led to a third trip, which again,
Oh,
even during that third trip later on that year, I'm not thinking like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna be here, right? In my mind, if I'm honest with you, I'm
okay.
thinking in the next 5 years, he'll probably tell me to go out there. That gives me enough time to build up savings. That gives me enough time to continue working on all the projects I'm working on here. Watch my niece continue to grow. Like all things that I desire.
Right,
And
right.
then from that third trip, literally 3 weeks goes by, and I'm sitting at work in the middle of a 21-day fast, and the Lord says it's time. Time for what? It's 4 o'clock. Get off. We get off in an hour.
Right,
Thanks for
right,
thanks for pointing that out,
right,
Captain Obvious.
right.
And he's like, no, it's time. And so he starts showing me again just visions of Tulsa. And I'm like, mm, no, not yet.
Mm.
I wasn't ready for this right now. You got to reconsider.
Okay. Okay. Oh, and obviously God respects your timetable.
Of
Right.
course, because Lee, I'm me. I'm me. Of course, I overrule anything that God says. I mean,
Sure.
I'm gonna tell the one who steps out of time what to do with time. Of course,
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
said no one
Uh-oh.
ever.
Right.
Listen, God said it so clearly, man. He was like, if you don't go when I tell you, you're gonna miss everything I have for you. And
Mm.
it was at that point that good partner starts to kick in. That okay, you heard what you just heard. Like it's at that point that I said, okay, I made a decision a little while ago, maybe 4 years ago. I don't want to be where God doesn't want me to be. Even if it's somewhere that I desire to be, even if it's somewhere that I truly want to be, I don't want to be out of his will. Because when I'm out of his will, I have to do too much. And let's be honestly, I don't have to do. I can't plan, act, and no. God comes with the
Okay.
plan. All I got to do is walk. So it's like,
Wow.
all right, I'll do it if you say so. But man, I just trust you.
Right.
I'll trust you. And so just learning that even.
Wow. Wow. As I'm listening, I'm hearing these attributes of a good partner,
Yeah.
being, hey, make sure I heard you. So paying attention, being aware,
Right.
being able to hear, you're talking about moving,
Mm-hmm.
acting
Mm-hmm.
so that we don't miss this
Yeah.
opportunity or this what God has for you. So that's good. That's good. So your um God has sped up your timetable,
Yeah.
right? So did that throw anything off? Did that throw off? Wait a minute. The what about my job situation, or what about my living circumstances, or whatever? How did that impact that? Because now it's not 5 years out anymore. Now
No.
it's relatively soon.
If I'm honestly, it threw off everything in the moment. Like
Okay.
every single thing that I so when God told me everything that I okay, but Lord, what about this and this and this and this? Everything I took back to him, it threw all of that off. And he's looking at me like I didn't ask you about that. I didn't ask you about any of that. I don't care about any of that. Like we got to understand this is something I've had to learn is whenever we go to God in a moment, he's beyond that moment. Like he already knows where this is going to end up. So for me to even bring him now details to a futuristic God, like God ain't just right here. He's back there. He's here. He's ahead.
Ah,
So I'm
okay.
bringing him now details, and he already has future answers, right? And
Ah,
so he's looking at me like, "Hey, man, if you
bar.
would just put those things down, I'm not even worried about it." I said, "All
Mm.
right, okay." And
Ah.
so it was
Say that again. You said now details to a futuristic God or something like that.
a future thinking God, if you would, because the
Sure, sure,
moment
sure.
Lee, us here right now, God
Mm,
already authored it. He authored
mm,
this way before we even got here on earth. It
right.
was already authored. And so for me to give him a situation that's in my now, like, God, I don't think this is going to work out. He's
Mm,
way up ahead, 20,
right.
30 years. He's beyond my lifetime, actually. Looking back at me like, hey, I didn't ask you about any of that. I got somewhere for you to be up here. Just come
Hmm.
on. Just come on. Like,
Right.
I don't have time for this. I mean, we can waste time and, you can see what that's going to get you. But if you trust me and you can be beyond time, I'm going to show
Mm.
you, acceleration. I'm going to make sure that I take care of you in that time. I'm going to show you things that the time that you're looking for to feel comfortable, you can't get out. You can't get outside of that. Like the time that I wanted to wait and do this in ministry and go start this relationship and go start this partnership and get this and that, all of that stuff, man. When I tell you the last year, so there was a year difference, pretty much a year difference from when I wanted to go and when God wanted me to go. God wanted me
Okay.
to go in 6 months. He was gracious enough to give me 6 months. I don't think Abraham had that much time. Right?
Right.
He was gracious enough to allow me 6 months because he knows his son. He knows what I need, right? I
Okay.
just comfort, right? Um, but I wanted to go 6 months after that. And if I would have waited, I would have missed out on a lifetime of memories. I would have
Okay.
missed out on a lifetime of healing. The healing that I
Mm.
got in that time, man, people literally go 40, 50 years before they finally are able to deal with it, right? Like
Let's, if you don't mind, let's dig into that. So
yeah,
what are some and the reason I want to do this is some people think, he must not have situations or issues or whatever. If God talking to him like this,
I found
obviously, go ahead.
Lee, can I tell you, the way this whole partnership started was
Mm,
in a broken place. You know,
mm,
I was broken. I had gone through a situation that literally broke me down to nothing, like
wow.
zilch. And out of that darkness, I remember, man, like you ever okay, picture yourself in a fight, right? It's a little schoolyard fight, it's two against one, they jumped you and you're on the ground and they kicking at you, and you're like, man, if I could just get out of this.
Right.
Whew.
Okay.
Okay, you beat me, right?
Mhm.
And like God literally had to beat me into submission.
Wow.
He literally had to beat me into submission, and then I surrendered. And so at the bottom of the lowest point that I think I had ever experienced, I told God, I said, okay, what do you want from me? Because I knew like God was calling me to more. But I'll be
Mm,
honest, like most people, I had the mentality like, okay, yeah, I'll do what you want, but like when I'm ready, like let me still do what I want to do, accomplish in the world, and then I'll come holler at you when I'm like
right.
old and I'm dead. We'll walk into heaven, it'll be great. And God was like, yeah, you don't have that option. You don't have
Mm,
that option. And I remember, man, just the stress of my life at that time. I was just in a very stressful situation and pattern, and I remember having to go to a hospital because I was having chest pains. And I'm like, man, I'm 27. I'm going right after Bible said. I think I went and talked to pastor, and right after Bible, I was like, yeah, I'm going to the hospital, but I'm gonna be all right. I know I'm gonna be all right, but I also feel like I need to go. Right? I believe
right.
in you, but I got insurance too, so
Right.
let me holler at this. And I remember being in that hospital bed at 6 in the morning, and the Lord came to me, man, and He said, "Now you're in a hospital bed. I can end it now,
Mm,
or you can come with me."
wow.
And I said, "All right, a little dramatic, but okay, okay."
He got your attention now. Now
Look,
you listen.
hello,
You
listen,
know,
literally, right? And so,
between the
literally,
beats on the monitor.
the nurse coming sticking me in my stomach with this big old thing, like all of this. I'm like, all right, this is too much, Lord. I'm not built for this. And so what I agreed on in September of 2018, I agreed. I said, I'll give you 1 year.
Mm,
I'll give you 1 year where I am fully devoted to you. I'm fully committed to you. I'm gonna fast. I'm gonna pray. I'm gonna give. I'm gonna be who you tell me to be. I'm not gonna go where you don't tell me to go. I won't hang with who you don't tell me to hang with. I'll fully surrender to you.
wow.
And so in that year, man, he blew my mind. He exploded.
Mm,
And so my thought was, I'm gonna do this for a year, and then I'll see that this ain't where it's at. I'm gonna go do what I want to
oh,
do. But at least I gave you a year, so you can't be mad at me. But in
okay.
that year, man, he expanded so much in my life. He showed me so much of him. I had to learn him as a father, him as a
Okay.
friend. I had to
Mm,
learn those things in that year. And it was like, man, based on this relationship, I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna stay. And so that's actually where, just kind of going back to that partnership piece, that's where the partnership actually began, was that
okay.
year. So
Okay.
in that, me learning to say yes, when God told me to move, right, go to the land I'll show you, like my voyage, if you would. What he told me was, right before I started the outreach. I told you I didn't get that internship. And I was
Mhm.
like, well, Lord, I want to work for you. I was working in a bank, I was working in finance, and I was like, man, I know there's more. I
Okay.
know I can do more. And he said, your next job will be in ministry, but you're still here for right now. And
Mm.
so with that, I had to go on that promise that fast forward, he's telling me to move and he's telling me to quit my job. Okay, I trust you. Bet. All right, we're gonna quit. That's a little unnerving for me, but we're gonna quit. And
Right.
I, in my mind, I thought, all right, I'm gonna move and I'm gonna be working like 2 weeks later. We're gonna get
Right.
into it.
Right.
And Lee, I went for a year and a month with no employment. And not just that, in the midst of no employment, in the midst of going through this inner healing, because you talked about healing, right? God delivered me from traumas that I had suffered from the beginning of that brokenness.
Okay.
God healed me from trust issues with people, in past seasons. Like there was a week in their time where the Lord literally had me to call people like, hey, I forgive you. I'm like, Lord, they're forgiven. Let them be forgiven. I don't need to talk to them. And he was
Right.
like, no, no, I need you to pick up the phone,
Okay.
get beyond your pride, and
Right.
forgive that person and let that person know that they're forgiven. I need you to phone and ask that person for forgiveness because you were wrong. I'm like, okay, but I did it for a right reason. Yeah, but that wasn't what I told you to do. And
Okay.
so I healed through those things, man. I healed from so
Wow.
many things that I think I had blocked out because on the faith journey, people don't talk about this often, but on the journey of faith, man, you do get some nicks and bruises along the way, right? It doesn't
Mm.
take you out.
Right.
Doesn't take you out. But if
Okay.
you take care of it in the moment, if you just lick it and put a band-aid on and keep it moving,
Right.
but you don't actually go back and treat that wound,
Right.
it can be very harming or harmful to your faith. It can be harmful to your body, your physical
Right.
body, your spiritual being. Like
Right.
there was a time not too long ago, man, where I had looked up and my faith was just depleted and I couldn't figure out why. I'm like, man, I trusted you for things much bigger than this, but I
Okay.
have no faith to give on this. And
Right.
what it is, the Lord showed me. He was like, well, you remember when I told you that this was going to do this, but it didn't work out the way you thought it was? You
Hmm.
started to lose a little bit of faith there. And then
Okay.
remember, you would believe me for a red shirt, but it was only a green shirt. You started to lose a little bit of faith right there. You didn't
Mm.
realize I still clothed you, but it wasn't how you expected it.
Okay.
Remember, you were
Okay.
expecting steak and shrimp, but I brought you a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Like you lost a little bit of faith there, even though I still fed you. And
Right.
so,
Right. So
you
so what I'm hearing is you still clothed, fed, right? Right.
provide.
He's providing,
Yeah.
right? And you brought up a point because sometimes um we kind of brush over different parts of the Bible
Mm-hmm.
or parts of these examples in the lives of people we see,
Yeah.
because we see that there was, even with David, I mean, not David,
Think
well,
about it.
definitely with David,
I was
but
thinking about
also with Abraham, there was this contention in the household over Ishmael. So,
it.
hey,
Mm-hmm.
there's this trouble here. There's this him saying, hey, Lord, it's been a couple years now. I still don't have this kid, right? So some of
Mm-hmm.
these promises that I know you told me, and
Yeah.
I moved out in this, believing this,
Yeah.
but hey, maybe there are these little moments where our faith starts to take a hit. I was I did on Instagram, I did um I talked about the guy that came to Jesus and
Mm-hmm.
he said, um, if you can heal my son, do it, because he had already taken the son to the disciples, right?
Correct.
So at the beginning, it's all faith. We're going. Hey, I did this one thing. Okay, didn't
Mm-hmm.
quite work out like I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that little bit of depletion of faith.
Yeah.
Hey, and now, hey, I did this. Hey, so Lord, the disciples weren't able to do it. So
Yeah.
now when he's talking face to face with Jesus, he says, if you are able to. And Jesus says, if, you
Right.
know,
God.
all things are possible to them that believe. And he said,
Yeah.
I believe. But he said, help my unbelief. You
Yeah.
know, I'm there, but I've been taking a couple L's.
Yeah.
And now my faith take may not be where it was initially,
Yeah.
but we still see that God still took care of the situation to, I believe,
Lee,
to help his unbelief.
we have to be so cautious, man, on this journey of faith in those moments to
Mm,
take a step back away from our feelings and honestly process through the lens of a good father. God is a good father, right? And
okay.
so through the lens of a good father, if he came in with groceries, I wanted McDonald's, but you came in with groceries, right? By the way, I don't eat McDonald's, but I wanted Chick-fil-A. I do eat Chick-fil-A. I
Okay.
wanted Chick-fil-A,
I think
but you
every believer, I think that's it's
oh
I think
man,
it's part of the,
put your hands right there. Listen, like I wanted Chick-fil-A, but you came in with groceries because you're gonna cook. And so I have to take a step back from my childlike faith and I
okay.
need to say, okay, it's not how I thought it would be.
Right.
It's not what I desired or how I concocted it,
Hmm.
but he did still provide for me.
That's good.
And
That's good.
honestly, that Chick-fil-A would have lasted me tonight, but he's getting ready to cook a meal that's gonna last me for days.
Right.
Right?
That's good.
We we,
That's
we
good.
have to remember, man, God is the author and the finisher of
Come
our
on.
faith.
Come
We're
on.
just the reader and the doer, right? We read what he's authored and we do what he's already finished.
That's good.
And so with that, we just have to walk. Like we can't get stuck on, man, I thought it would be different, or man, I expected this to come into this time. We
Right.
can't put time, the contention that you spoke of with Abram and Sarah, there was contention because they're trying to put time on a promise to someone who time does not matter to.
Facts.
Promise
That's
from
good.
God is promise from God.
That's
It's
good.
not it's going to be when I want it to. No, it's promise from God. And so a promise from God stands the test of time because when he speaks a word, it literally waters the soil of the earth that we walk into. When we speak of a time, it can only last in that moment. So what are we
Right.
going to do outside of that moment? Do
Right.
I want to do I want to get a promise that lasts in the moment that I want it for, or do
Mm.
I want the one who doesn't even look at time? He made time for us. Do I want to
Man,
look at the
listen.
one who's not even concerned about time and say, hey, this is a promise. And as long as you walk this earth, this promise that I made to you, this thing that I spoke out of my mouth won't return to me void, but it will accomplish what I said it's going to do. So which one do you want? You want a bag
This,
of popcorn
bruh,
or you want something
bruh,
that's going to last you forever?
bruh. I keep saying, bruh. I didn't lost my professional, outstanding, brother, outstanding. Good. Right. Let me tighten it back up. Let me tighten it
But
back up.
Lee, we
But
have to
I'm
we got to be
hearing,
diligent in that. Yeah.
man, um and I'm in awe. The person I'm talking to now, the conversation
Yeah.
that I'm hearing now from the person that left a couple
Mhm.
years ago,
Yeah.
in following this cloud, in
Yeah.
following God in real life, like
Yeah.
I'm hearing another, um I'm looking, I'm like, this look like David. I promise this look like David,
Ooh, Lee.
but it sounds like this is a grown man over here.
Because Lee, and I love that you bring that up, man. Because when you go through faith, when you follow what God is doing and you start to learn more and you start to learn him more, when God begins to do what's inside of you and gets rid of what was once there, you don't walk the same. You don't sound the
Mm,
same. You don't hear the same. All of your senses develop in a new way. All
mm,
of your senses have to change because now, as you're trusting God, like, man, oh, it's raining outside, God. I don't want to get wet. Hey, come, my son. I got you. Put you underneath my jacket. I got you.
right,
Come on, walk. Let's walk. Lord, this journey is getting a little tough, man. It's cold out here. Don't worry. I already have a fire around the corner. Just keep coming. Just keep coming.
right.
Lord, it's hot out here, man. This desert is so hot. Don't worry. I have water to quench your thirst. Just keep coming. So when you learn to just keep walking, you learn to just keep coming. What's built in there is that trust that I lacked before.
That's good.
The level of trust that I had before was enough for then. The
Right.
level of trust that I have to have now is much larger, it's much greater. And so when you're learning to have that new level of trust, you start to allow God to, hey, have me, do what you need to do. And so he
That's good.
starts to do that inner work. Like our outside may still look the same, our exterior may still look the same. And what happens oftentimes is our exterior reminds the person who knew our exterior of what they once knew. But when they actually start to dive into the interior and you
Right.
start seeing what
Right.
God is actually doing on the inside of a person,
Right.
you start to realize, oh, no, that's not who I thought it was. That's not what I used to know.
Right.
And Lee, it's so funny you talk about it, man. The person that you knew even just a year ago, when I set off to go on this particular part of the journey, like not the same person.
Right. Right.
Like
Right.
it's a part where the more you learn about God, you
Mhm.
can't be the same because we come to Him, we
What?
we come to Him a certain way,
Right.
and He tolerates us in that moment as a father who just loves his child and wants to spend time with us.
Mhm.
But as you get closer with Him,
Come on.
as you begin to strengthen your yes, as
Right.
you continue to grow in obedience, as your faith begins to rise, something has to go. And so, what he might have once tolerated from you, he's going to
Okay.
require more from you at this time. And so, you
Uh-oh.
have to grow into that. Like
Come on.
this is a work in progress, but I'm glad I'm progressing.
Right. Right. Well, the Bible says, we got what God is doing. He's trying to conform us to the image of His Son, and so there's a
Yeah,
lot of stuff in old me, existing me, that don't
correct.
quite look like His Son. So we gotta change, and we keep scoping and keep
Yeah.
digging all that stuff out. So man, good stuff. So um, so catch me up. You leave. And now this is us talking. This is me talking to my brother now. So catch me up. So you leave, your timetable got sped up. Now you're in Tulsa, right?
Yep.
So now you gotta figure out your living situation, your job situation, or how much of that was in place, or did it get blown up? You know.
Lee, Lee. Here's the part that's gonna make people very uncomfortable.
Uh-oh.
None of that was in place. I had a departure date. Do not be here when the sun rises on this date, or you disqualify yourself from everything. And literally 5 a.m., my mom came, my sister came, hopped in the car with all that I had. Lee, I couldn't even get a U-Haul. He said, give stuff away. Whatever doesn't fit in your Honda Accord can't come.
Oh no. What?
Like, and that's part of the cleansing, but that's a whole nother time. So literally,
Mhm.
I had to be going by that day. Lee, I didn't know where I was going to live. I didn't even know. I know that I'm going on a 21-hour trip to Tulsa, Oklahoma from Tampa, Florida, and I don't even know where I'm going to lay my head when I get there. Right? But
Right.
that's not important in that moment. God said to do it. I don't know where I'm going to work, but
Mm.
again, that's not important. God said to do it. I don't know what I'm going to even like do when I get I have no idea. And so what happened is as I got further and further along the trip, God just began to sprinkle a little dust, sprinkle
Okay.
a little faith, sprinkle a little clue, sprinkle a little answer.
Mm.
We go to God wanting the answer at the start line. We're
Correct.
not gonna know who's gonna
Because I'm
want the
like,
answer.
wait a minute, he's the author and the finisher, so he could give me the whole thing, bro. Right.
Keyword could. Yeah, he could do a lot of things.
Right.
He can. He could. He absolutely
Right.
could.
Right.
But Lee, this is where we need to kind of temper ourselves, if we would. If God showed most of us the things that He wants to do in our life, we'd mess it up. We find a
Mm.
way to try and control it, and He don't need us in the paintbrush. He doesn't need us in there trying to,
Mm.
write different. Okay, well, Lord, I like what you did. I'm just gonna add this page in. He don't need
Right.
that.
Right. 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 Right.
But if
Right.
I do it like this, though, Lord, then it's gonna come, and then
Okay.
everybody gonna see it. And the Lord's like, I didn't do that for everybody. I did that for one person, and you're messing it up right now. So
Mm.
be careful.
Right.
But man, I
That's
came
good.
out here and literally, I was in Alabama, I was driving through Alabama, and he showed me this place, and I applied for it, and I literally signed my lease driving through Alabama. I wasn't driving when I signed. I was
Right.
in
Right.
Tampa
Right.
the
Right.
whole
Right.
time. Let's just to be clear,
Yeah.
I'm a safe
Oh,
person.
good. 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 Statute of
And
limitations.
so I came to like where he sent me, man. I didn't even do a tour of the place because what was the point? What am I needing a tour? This is where he told me to be. I don't have no questions. Lee, let me tell you something. When you get to a certain level in the faith walk, certain things are I'm gonna say this. Please don't take this arrogantly, but I'm just telling you where it is. Certain things are beneath me to even think of. Like a tour, that's no, my father he's already said that this is the place. Why would I bother myself with a tour for what? This is it. This is where I'm going. I don't need a tour. Like
So, bro. Okay. Hold on. Help me
yeah,
and the millions of people listening. Right?
yeah,
Come on, somebody. This is
yeah.
episode 4. Millions of
Speak it
people.
in, speak it in, speak it in. Proverbs 18:1.
Right.
Death and life.
So, um, where does so how do you respond to that person that would say, man, this is kind of reckless?
Interestingly, so if I could, my answers kind of bridge a bit. When he first told me that I'd be moving, right? Go to the land I'll show you. When he first gave me instruction, I wanted to share it with the world. But I
Mm.
think like if I shared it with 5 people that week,
Hmm.
like I had enough wisdom to say, all right, you don't cast your pearls on swine. You don't share this with everybody.
Okay.
Because Lee,
Okay.
what'll happen is when you allow people to come in, right? When you give them access to something, you're also giving them access to be your partner, and not all people should be your partner in faith.
Mm.
And so what happened is I had learned already, like with something else, don't tell this to everybody.
Okay.
Because there are people who are going to pray against it, not maliciously, but hey, I don't want to see you leave. Oh, well, I wanted you to do this for me this summer. Like there are people who would actively partner with their own desires instead of partnering with what God would want to see happen. And
Mm.
so I didn't share it with too many people until I think maybe like a month and a half before. I was even like scared to tell my boss at the time, like, hey, because Lee, I got a promotion. I got a promotion before I left. Like,
Oh.
or I got a movement. I got to move closer to home, like
Right.
in the middle of a pandemic, right? I got a position alignment, and I was working 2 minutes from home, and I was terrified to even tell my manager, like, hey, I'm gonna leave this summer though, just so you know.
Right.
But like literally, God was like, don't lie about anything. And I was like, all right, I won't. But I ended up getting a boss who was a believer and who was excited for me. I was gracious enough to have a pastor who, when I went and sat with him about 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, no, 2 weeks. It was 2 weeks after God told me. I scheduled a meeting with my pastor, and his first reaction is, "Oh man, that's so exciting! What are you doing? You started a church? How can I help you? How can I help you?" Right?
Mm.
And so
Okay.
even having that, because that's not everyone's story. Some people,
That's
their
right.
pastor would try and condemn. Oh, you can't leave, or God didn't tell you that. He didn't tell
Right.
me that. That wasn't my story, right? So I had
Mm.
support from the
Okay.
pillars that I needed it from. And
Okay.
I said, okay, I got from my couple mentors, I got, my pastor, I got, all right, cool, this is good. This is enough people to pray with me and pray for me. So this is
That's
cool.
good.
And
That's good.
so as I
Wow.
moved through the process, you just kind of learn to build courage, to build strength.
Mm.
And what happens, man, is you come up higher. God
Okay.
is up here, and
Right.
we're all just trying to get we trying to
Right.
get at least here, right?
Right.
But God is up here. You got to think up here. There are certain things that God is just not concerned about. The author and the finish is not concerned about a smudge on the page because he knows that this story is still going to pick up, even though
Mm.
there's a smudge on that little word right there. I'm not worried
Okay.
about it. This is still
Sure.
going to be fine,
Sure.
right? And so the author and finisher of my faith, if he's not worried about certain things,
Mm.
I shouldn't be either.
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
Like that's just the part of it. And I'll be honest, that part is easier said than done. It's easier said than done.
Right. I'm cringing along with some of the listeners.
Lee,
Like, man,
Lee,
that's got to be tough.
let me give it to you in a world view.
Mm.
Hey guys, I'm gonna quit my job that I've been at for 5 years, and I'm gonna give away all my stuff, and I'm gonna move to this place where I know a couple people, but I don't like really know nobody. And my closest family member is about 12 hours away.
Mm.
And so yeah, I'm just gonna move out there by myself on faith. And God didn't tell me where I'm gonna work, but I'm moving next week, and I still don't know where I'm gonna work. I don't even know where I'm gonna live. I got a little money saved up, but I don't know how long that's gonna last. But yeah, that's what I'm
Right.
gonna do.
Right. Wow. Yeah.
Sure,
Man,
terrifying.
you
And
know.
Lee, can I know you got another another spot, but can I even just touch right there?
Yeah.
Even in faithfulness, it's scary.
Mm.
Like, I think we have this idea that, we got to be fully encouraged and powered up to do it, and it's like, nah, some stuff you got to do afraid.
That's
Some
good.
things, some things you have to do shaking in your boots,
That's
but
good.
just keep moving forward.
Right.
Like, if I'm honestly, I tell people this part of my story, but me actually leaving on that day to come out and drive to Tulsa, I was excited the morning of, and then when I got out of Florida, it was like, oh, this is real.
This is happening. Yeah.
I'm really doing this. Like, I ain't turning back now. And
Okay.
so I just had to put brace myself against the wind and say, all right, well, let's just go.
Hmm.
Hey, you're not gonna catch anything in the middle. There's something at the next spot that God gave you. Like, okay, Lord, what did you tell me to do? You told me to leave Florida and go to Oklahoma. And so that means that while I'm driving through Alabama and I'm still maybe a little nervous and a little unsure, I'm
Mm.
not at the destination yet. That means when I'm going through these tall, winding roads in Arkansas, okay, still a little unsure, but I'm not at the destination yet. When I actually get to Oklahoma, all that worry and doubt and fear, it has to dissipate because I've at least done my part. God will
That's
tell us
good.
to do something in faith, and we have to trust Him in faith. And I have to know that He is really a good Father. I have to know
Mm.
not only is He a good Father, but He's a promise keeper. And
Come on.
so if He said to do this, and I've done my part, I don't have to worry about.
Wow.
The details don't come from me. The decision comes from me, but the
Mm.
details do not.
Man, this, I am encouraged because there's a couple things I'm praying about, a couple
Yeah,
things, it's like, this is like faith stuff. This is like faith
yeah.
stuff. So
Uh-huh.
I love hearing the testimony of people that are following God
Yeah.
in real life. I remember you telling me, it was like, Lee, follow the cloud, follow the cloud. I'd be like, see, you sounds good. That'll preach.
Yeah.
That's a good hashtag, but when I see somebody that's living it out in real life,
Yeah.
um so as we're landing the plane, let us know. So where we at, what we doing now? I think you um ended up in school, or so kind of give me
Yeah.
what's
So
what's what's going on.
with that, I think I pieced it a couple times. I'll close those knots. But I mentioned like how I had to quit my job and God wouldn't allow me to apply for anything unless He told me to. Right? I could have
Hmm.
easily went and gotten a job in finance or anywhere really, but that's
Right.
not what He told me to do. He said, "Trust me, I'll tell you when to apply." Right? And
Wow.
so in the weight of that, I think 6 months in, uh, maybe 4 or 5 months in, I'm starting to heal. I'm starting to really get healing that I need, and I'm starting to actually rest. Hey, a
Mm.
lot of us, we don't rest, guys.
Okay.
We need to rest, but I
Right.
start to rest and I start to just become this new creature, right? All
Mm.
old things pass away, behold, all things are new. I
Come on.
start becoming
Come
into
on.
beholding all things are new. And so in that, I got an instruction to go to school. As far as I was concerned, I was done with school. But okay, Lord, hey, I'm trusting you. Like, I done moved out here. I'm not gonna stop trusting you now, right?
Okay.
I
Right.
can't say, okay, I'll do this part, but then let me handle this. Nah, you
Right.
got the whole thing. This
Yeah.
don't
You
even
don't
work.
stop in the middle of the Red Sea.
No, come on, keep going, right? I believe it was Prophet Dory that said, just keep swimming. No. So I just keep trusting. And so God told me to go to school at ORU. And I'm like, all right, cool. You gonna send me something? Like I don't have it. And so literally, man, Lee, God began to send or cause people to literally hit me up out of the blue. Hey, what's your cash app? The Lord told me to give you something.
Wow.
Okay. Hey, what's your routing and account number, man? The Lord want me to wire you.
Mm.
What?
Right.
And so literally, Lee, Oral Roberts is a private university, and I went debt free like every 2 weeks. Was that every
Wow.
every month? Every month, man. Look, rent would come out, and then the school payment would come out the next one. And when I
Come
tell
on.
you, like, there would be days where the night before it's the 31st, and I know that payment is coming out on the first and 31st. I got 28 cents in my account.
Come on.
Did I have a worry? Not at all, because I've seen
Wow.
him do it already. The thing
Right.
we have to kind of focus on, when
Right.
you see him do it one
Right.
time, you got to
Right.
know that he can do it again.
Exactly.
And so
Exactly.
never was late on a payment, never
Mm.
missed a payment, never
Wow.
missed a bill. And so I was able to actually pay to actually go to school, like debt free as
Mm.
a student know, Oral Roberts, man, really getting a good education. But this past summer, God, I finally, because again, I never lost hold of that promise, right? We talk about
Okay.
promises all the time. I got a
Mhm.
word back in 2018. Hey, don't worry, your next job is in ministry. I got a word in 2020, quit your job. Now, he didn't tell me quit and then apply for this. But I got to put those two things together. If in one season you said this will be next, and in another season you said to leave this, I got to
Mm,
go back to this guy and say, okay, well, this is still next. So I'll wait on you, Lord. And it
mm.
was, I got to the point at the end of the semester, I said, okay, Lord, I had applied at this church like maybe twice. And I was like, you know what? Look, man, if this ain't what you want to do right now, I'm cool. This is working. We can do
Okay.
it. And the very next day, when I finally submitted, because I think even going through school, I was kind of like, all right, yeah, I'll do it, but is that ready? Is that ready? Are we? And when I finally was like, all right, now it's whatever you want to do.
Right.
The next day, he was like, all right, cool, bet, apply for this position.
Mm,
Oh, okay, because he had my full yes.
mm.
A lot of times we give God like a yeah, you can have this hand, but I'm gonna stay over here with my other hand and kind of still,
Right.
what I want to do, and we're gonna still do this. And oh, I don't want to let God. I want to let go and hold on as well, right? And
Right.
so,
Right. Right.
like
Right.
literally, when I finally was like, "No, I'm gonna let go, let God do you," He was like,
Mm.
"Okay, bet. Now I'm gonna give you what
Wow.
it is that I told you already, what
Mm.
you began to desire, because now I can trust you. Now I got both of your hands.
Right.
Do this." And so,
That's
man,
good.
and just literally just a crazy, crazy to me anyway. Um, I got interviewed and hired within a month of
Oh
him telling
wow.
me to apply.
Nice.
And what was funny was I told you before, I was like, when I applied the first time, it took a month for them to tell me no, no interview or anything, right?
Yeah,
And
right.
so,
Right.
but that was me wanting to do it. When God
Mm.
was like, "Hey, now I want you there,"
Right.
he was like, "Yeah, we're gonna expedite this. Don't worry about all that. Like, you're
Mm.
gonna do these. You're gonna do an interview every week for the next 4 weeks, and then you'll have a job at the end." I'm
Mm.
like, "Okay, all right. I'm not quite qualified for that one though. I mean, I love to do it. It fits me. It's what I love to do, but I don't have all the qualifications they're looking for." And he said, "I didn't ask you about qualifications.
Mm.
I didn't tell you that your purpose needed qualifications. I qualified you to live out this purpose." And so, literally,
I
man,
didn't tell you your purpose needed qualifications, bro.
listen, I can't speak for everybody else, Lee. I can't,
Yes.
but I know that he has to talk to me a certain way because I ask a lot of questions,
Right.
and
Right.
so
Right. Right.
it's he God might talk to some of you very sweetly and very
Mm.
woo, 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 woo.
Right.
That's not us.
Okay.
That's not
Right. Right.
He know how to talk to me. He know what I need.
That's good.
So
We have a God that knows who we are and what we need.
yeah,
If your journey had to go through a hospital room to get you, but let me ask you this: um, knowing the road you traveled,
yep,
right? Knowing the situation you had to go through,
yeah.
um, was it worth it?
Um, Worth.
Mhm.
Let me say this: knowing that I'm here where God wants me to be, knowing that I'm in, like, literally living out my purpose in
Wow.
this time and in this season, I don't think worth even equates
Mm,
to like
that's good.
true feeling or meaning of it. It's the knowing, because I think a lot of times as believers, we question if we're in the right place or space.
Okay.
We question or we wonder, like, God, is this still it? Am I still doing what you want me to do?
Mm-hmm.
But when you know that you know that you know, it changes everything.
Mm,
Knowing that I'm right where I'm supposed to be,
mm-hmm.
it's beyond worth it. And if I'm
Mm.
honest, man, because this is reality, it's not all highs,
Right.
right?
Right.
There are definitely some lows.
Yep.
There are definitely some lows, but I wouldn't change anything.
Mm,
I wouldn't change any. I wouldn't change any of the bumps along the road. I wouldn't change any of the scabs I got when I fell. I wouldn't change any of the starvation, figuratively. walking in the desert, I wouldn't change any of it
Mm.
because I finally got to the promised land.
Come on.
It was all worth it.
That's good. That's
If
good.
we could think about it like this, just to kind of bring in that King James aspect, the children of Israel, they literally lost generations of people
Mm.
because they were not where God wanted them to be.
Mm.
Only 2 people got to actually go to the promised land. And so you would have to ask Joshua and Caleb, was it worth it?
Mm.
And I imagine as older men, they would have to look back at all the people that they saw die that God didn't allow to get to the promised land. They would
Okay.
have to look back and see all of the missed opportunities. They'd have to go back and look at those days where, man, that desert was hot, the wilderness was hot, the
Right.
wilderness was providing, but man, that food wasn't as good. Like they would
Right.
have to look back at all of those
Mm.
things. And I imagine if you were to ask them would they change anything, they say no. The journey,
Right.
how we get to a place, affects how we appreciate the destination.
Absolutely.
And so for
Absolutely.
me
I agree.
to really say, was it worth it? Absolutely. I wouldn't change anything. Every low point made me appreciate high points.
Mm.
Every high point made me appreciate my high God.
Come on. So to anyone that's listening that is trying to figure out how to follow God in real life, what key takeaway do you want them to take from this episode? Hey, you want to follow God in real life? Do this.
Yeah. One verse that I go to very regularly, man, is Proverbs 3:5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not into your own understanding. That verse requires a couple very simple things that will help anyone in their entire life live a life following God.
Okay.
You have to trust Him,
Mm-hmm.
right? Trust does not mean I know all the details. Trust does
Mm.
not mean that I know the answers. Trust does not mean that I'm in control at all. Trust actually means I'm going to give you control and trust that you're going to do whatever you want to do that's going to be great for
Wow.
me, right?
That's good. Yeah.
Trust in the Lord. It requires God. You can't do God things without God. So if you're doing something right
Right.
now,
But I trusted myself.
yeah, it ain't about you,
Right.
right?
Right. That's
Trust in
good.
God. Trust in
That's
the
good.
Lord with all your heart. You have
Mm-hmm.
to put your heart into it, man. A lot of people they miss out on listening to God or partnering with God
Mm-hmm.
because they won't give Him their full heart. They won't give Him their full yes.
That's
Like
good.
allow God to take your heart and mold it into who He wanted you to be initially. The world corroded our hearts. The world corroded our minds. The
Mm.
world brought wicked things into our eyes. But God wants to remold our hearts for this journey that He's taking us on, right? And
Yep.
lean not into your own understanding. You don't have to have it figured out. I know we want to. I know you want to. I know you want to know, God, what colors you're gonna do. But the next time you find yourself lacking trust, the next time you find yourself lacking understanding, the next time you find yourself even questioning, like, God, are you even real? I want you to look out your window or look on the grass or look outside, and I want you to look at grass. And I
Mm.
want you to look at grass and know that grass grows not being planted. Grass grows and flows in the wind that we don't control. The wind blows, the grass moves, right? We
Mm.
cut the grass, it comes back. We ain't plant that grass. Like we didn't plant these trees that we see. We didn't build these mountains that you well, not in Florida, but that you see when you drive
Right.
in
Right. Right.
places, right? We
Right.
didn't create these bodies of water, these oceans and these rivers
Mm.
like God did. And
Yeah.
so if the same author that created those big massive things
Mm-hmm.
gives me an instruction,
Mm.
I trust His pen. Know that the Bible that we read now, it was once just a word spoken.
That's
But
good.
once those people actually acted out and they
Sure.
trusted God, it
Mm.
became a story that inspired trillions of generations to come. So
That's good. That's
understand
good.
that the life that God has authored and penned for you, imagine it as the new living Bible,
Mm.
right? Your story God is going to use for somebody else.
That's
So
good.
don't allow your first chapters to be like Jonah, where Jonah is running. Like allow your first couple chapters to be in the line of Abraham, where
That's
it's like,
good.
all right, I'll go.
Well, my friend, I am so glad we got to reconnect and share
Yes.
this conversation with the world. I am encouraged. I'm about to. That's it. Hey, let me call some people. I'm doing it right.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So, man, I
Call
appreciate
the right
you.
people.
I appreciate your story. I appreciate the lessons, and I really believe it's going to help us to follow hard after God.
Yeah.
Um, if a person wants to get in touch with you, is there a best way to reach out to you or
Best way currently, man, Instagram. I wanted to rebrand, but I currently didn't get that. It's King of Tunk. Or you can do my other Instagram for my podcast is at the number two, follow the cloud. Those are great ways to reach out to me. But man, if ever you find yourself in a faith fight or even just have questions about faith, like I don't have it all figured out, but I've understood, or better yet, come to understand that God has it all figured out and He's got it all planned out. And so I've just learned to walk in that. So if you ever need any encouragement or, even just tips or of how or what to do, I don't have all the answers, but I can give you what I got.
outstanding? Well, you, sir, have more than you think. So this is the interview with David Davis teaching us how to follow God in real life. If you have not subscribed to the podcast, go ahead and do that now. It's in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And leave us a review. Reviews really help. If it's being a blessing to you, then push it forward, right? Share it with somebody else and let them know that they too can know how to follow God. Thank you, sir, and I appreciate you. And have a good. I'm still working on my ending, people. It's not episode 100 yet. It's episode 5. So
Listen, get the reps in. Get the
right,
reps
right,
in.
right. Exactly. So we're gonna close out the podcast and we'll see y'all next week. All right, bye-bye, everybody.